On today's show, is this the year where Jayson Tatum finally wins an MVP award? And who is the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. They've got so many different wagers. You can take a look at division winners, conference winners, different season awards, or just the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. Right now, the Chiefs are plus 500, 49ers plus 700, right behind them, the Ravens at plus 750, and then a three-way tie. The Houston Texans, Detroit Lions, and Buffalo Bills all plus 1100. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Celtics and Locked On NBA, John Karalis. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Celtics. And John, Celtics, fresh off of their NBA championship, they are the team to beat in the NBA landscape this season. I want to start really quickly with, give us an update on where Kristaps Porzingis is at health-wise, because I think that's going to feed into this next question that I have for you about Jayson Tatum's upcoming season.
So the target is still December. I think it might move to early December versus late December, but that's still kind of fluid. The Celtics, when they initially announced everything, they gave a 5 to 6 month timeline for his recovery. The 5-month part of it was like Thanksgiving-ish. 6 months was Christmas-ish. And Porzingis came to camp saying, he didn't say he's ahead of schedule, but he said it without saying it. He's on the floor. He's doing some light contact. So optimistic that he can hit the early part of that recovery timeline and maybe be back at the beginning of December.
So obviously getting Porzingis back sooner is best case scenario for the Celtics. But I will say for Jayson Tatum, a guy who has the MVP award has eluded Tatum to this point in his career. Is this his chance, or is this his best chance to potentially win the MVP award this season? Or kind of what does he have to do to win it? Because you look at if they're going to be missing Porzingis for any amount of time, one of the downsides when you have a team as top heavy, as talented as the Celtics, is everybody has to sacrifice a little bit, right? And that hurts Tatum's individual numbers. That hurts him in the MVP narrative, the debate, all that. So is this maybe a chance for him to gas up his numbers a little bit and get, ahead of steam in the MVP race this year?
So there's two answers to that question. I don't think this is his opportunity. I think weirdly people reward the more heliocentric player that takes a team that maybe had lower expectations to a height that they didn't kind of anticipate. So if Tatum is gonna win an MVP in his career, I actually think it's probably 2 or 3 years from now, after the second apron has done its damage, after a couple of the big names have been forced to leave because the team is not going to pay a $200 million tax bill for very long, if that ever. So I think after all of that, Tatum's going to need to do more. He will do more, and then he'll get into the MVP conversation. However, you did ask, what would it take? And I do think that there is a 30-point per game, 6 assists, 10 rebounds kind of year in him, where he's been averaging 8 rebounds. So a couple more is not out of the question. He averaged 26 points a game last year, almost 27. Well, you hit 1 more 3 a game and his shooting form looks pretty good. He's fixed a couple of things. Now all it takes is 1 more 3-pointer. You're right there at 30. And a couple of other guys hit a couple of shots. I'm not asking for a lot here. A couple of other guys hit some more shots, and now he's at a number where people say, hey, look, he is the best player on the best team. Jaylen Brown might want to like debate the best player part of it, but people might say this is the year to give it to Tatum. We didn't give it to him last year. If they are defending champions and a 60-win team again, voters might feel compelled to vote for Tatum.
Look, speaking of Jaylen Brown, I mean, what are your early impressions of him at this point going through camp and stuff? Because first of all, I saw him on TV the other day. I haven't seen him in person like you have. First of all, he looks jacked. Is he coming in with like a huge chip on his shoulder with the whole getting snubbed by the Olympics and everything?
Well, the chip is like in his pecs and his biceps and all of that stuff. The dude, he traveled the world and he knows where every gym is in every city.
He looks like a tank. Like, it's ridiculous.
He does. He does. He put on muscle, and this isn't like muscle watch, but it truly is. He did add some bulk, but it's only been 2 preseason games. But especially the second one, he looked like he was using that bulk. He played through people. Poor Jamal Murray got in his way, and he just backed him down, played through him, gave him the too small in a preseason game. He's playing extraordinarily well. I think the thing that stood out to me in these 2 preseason games is how ready the Celtics look already. And Jaylen Brown, I think, is by far leading the pack here. Whether it is a chip on his shoulder from the Olympics and getting what he thinks is a snub, or just understanding that one championship is nice, multiple championships is what makes you a legend. He wants what everybody in the NBA wants. He wants a Hall of Fame career. He wants multiple titles. And I think whatever it is, whatever his motivation is, it's showing. He looks really good, and he's playing like a guy who's got it's like that last Infinity Stone. He's like, oh, yes. So he looks really good, man.
Love the Thanos reference here on Locked On NBA. All right, look, said it at the top, right? Celtics are the team to beat coming in to this NBA season, and we've kind of witnessed like an arms race taking place in the Eastern Conference. The Paul George trade to the Sixers, trade, I apologize, signing. Little Freudian slip there. And then obviously the New York Knicks gearing up with the Mikal Bridges trade, and then most recently trading for Karl Anthony-Towns. So in your eyes, John, who is right now the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference?
I mean, I want to say the Knicks, but the Sixers are right there. I think those 2 teams are kind of like jockeying for position to be that biggest threat. Obviously, the Sixers, with their health, we don't know what they're going to be in the regular season. If they hit the postseason fully healthy and Joel Embiid is ready to give them somewhere between 35 and 40 minutes a game, that would be a stretch, actually. But if he's giving them like 35 minutes a game, that makes them very difficult, because the Celtics don't have anyone to really, truly guard Embiid except for a 38-year-old Al Horford, which would take a lot out of him. But both teams are going to be very strong. The Knicks, I want to see it. I want to see how Tibbs uses Karl Anthony-Towns. I don't
know about you, man. When they made that trade, my sirens went off my head. I was like, this was a trade they made with the intention of matching up even better with Boston, right? You look at, obviously, Cat is not the type of 5 that's going to anchor a defense and hold down the paint on his own. But then you look in a vacuum at how the Knicks and their projected starting lineup now matches up with Boston's best 5, their starting lineup, and you're like, oh, that's why they made the trade.
Kinda, yeah. I think they want that 5 out. They want that stretch big. They want to clear some space for Jalen Brunson to drive. They want space for Mikal Bridges to drive. They want space for OG Anunoby. That it's certainly going to do that. My big thing in looking at the competition for Boston is the Celtics don't have in their starting lineup, or even in their top 6, 7, a guy that you can look at and say, we are targeting him defensively, and that's going to be where we break them down. They just don't have that. The Knicks, the Sixers, any other team that they face has at least one guy that the Celtics can target and can force you to say, well, we got to send 2 if that's the matchup. And when you send 2, there's rotation and there's openings. And so, yes, the Knicks are formidable. And if they won, would we be surprised? Nah. They were built to do this. But I still look at the Celtics and say, defensively, they're so strong that they don't have the weakness the other teams do. So, yeah, there are tough challengers, but I still look at the Celtics as the favorite and a very tough team to beat.
Is this Jayson Tatum's year to win an MVP with the Boston Celtics? Who are the Celtics' biggest threats in the Eastern Conference? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Celtics. John, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
You got it, my friend.